Okay, everybody see this okay?
Yes, sir.
Thought I'd start with just a roll call, just a name and call sign and where you're from, maybe how many DXCC countries you've got, or when you were first licensed, whatever you want to tell us about yourself. Okay, thanks everybody. I mentioned Mount Athos. It recently was accredited. The recent operation was accredited. It counts, and Coy is going to talk to us about what the DXAC had to say about all of that.
Well, I'm here to give away all the secrets on why the ARRO took so long to recognize that operation and make it valid. And the problem was the group had said they were going to go back over there. And the ARRO was afraid to accredit it because if they go over there again and operate and are shut down again, they'd have egg on their face, because it would mean that obviously they didn't have permission to operate. So let me clarify. We have a DX advisory committee meeting on Thursday evenings about every 3 weeks. And the last one, Thursday a week ago, the CEO, David, and Bart Janke and W9JJ met with the DXAC at our meeting. And basically we turned the meeting over to them because they wanted advice. They didn't know what to do with Mount Athos. They did not know what to do with it. And they were at the point of discrediting it. And I asked David directly, were they licensed to operate? And he said yes. And I said, so what's your problem? Well, that's when we discovered that they were embarrassed about all of it. Anyhow, I want to say that what happened was they had permission to operate from Athens, which is valid, and had permission to operate from the monastery. That's all you need over there to work on Mount Athos, is if you have monastery permission and the Greek government permission, you're good to go. That's all they needed. So the question comes, why did they shut them down? And this is interesting because most of you know YT1AD, Ronnie, who's a billionaire, and Ronnie's put on a lot of the expeditions. He's been everywhere. And Ronnie is very familiar with the folks at Mount Athos. He had made 38 trips there trying to get permission to operate. And he could not get permission to operate. There's a reason for that. But the thing is, the group was there and they had permission to operate, and there was a bit of jealousy there, plus animosity, because Ronnie did not like Marty, because Marty spent so much time with Kosovo, getting them their independence and on the air and et cetera, so there's a lot of animosity between them. Ronnie, having made all of those trips to Athens and to the monasteries, knew the governor over the monasteries very well. And he was the one that called and had this operation shut down. Now, it gets more complicated because the team folded up all their equipment, loaded up, and was on their way out. There was a couple that were hanging back And they got word down from the governor's office that said, you guys can go ahead and operate. Well, most of the team was gone and the equipment was ordered. So that discontinued the operation. What the ARRL was holding out for was something written that says they could have gone ahead and operated. And they did not have written permission from the governor to operate, and it's not really required, but the ARRL wanted it so that they'd have insurance against them being shut down again. So that's the whole thing in a nutshell. Jealousy. Any questions? I must have covered it pretty good.
So it counts, and it's, all the logs have been uploaded to LOTW, and Club Log OQRS is now active. You can, in fact, I ordered cards today.
Jeff, how many in here have worked on Athos here?
On this one?
Yeah.
Quite a few of us.
Cool.
It was a good operation.
Okay. Good evening and welcome. You folks who are not members of the OKDXA may ask, what is the OKDXA? What do you do? The Oklahoma DX Association is an Oklahoma ham club organized, I think, in the early 1990s by hams interested in chasing DX. We have a statewide membership of about 60 and also have members in Kansas, Texas, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Georgia, Connecticut, and Ohio. We have a website, okdx.org. We also keep in touch via our email list on groups.io. We usually have 3 regular in-person meetings throughout the year. In April at the Green Country Hamfest, in July at the Ham Holiday Hamfest in Oklahoma City, and we have a banquet dinner meeting in October. This year we're trying something a little different. Instead of the banquet meeting in October, we're having this DX dinner as a part of the Green Country Hamfest. We hope you like it. Our thanks to the Green Country and their president Merlin of WB50SM for letting us host this event. In addition to daily DX alert and information messages we share via email, we have a members DXCC totals listing on our website and lots of information about DXing in the OKDXA. We also participate in the OKDXA group under leaderboards and Club Log. We have implemented an internet chat group under the Discord platform. Most days there's a group of us that chat on that channel about DX spots or share DX info or whatever else we want to talk about. It's much like some of the early 2-meter FM DX alert channels, but more modern. One of our primary purposes as a club is to support the expeditions. That's the reason for this event, to raise money so that we can donate in support of worthy expeditions. As an example, since the beginning of 2024, we have given financial contributions to the following expeditions. TX5S Clipperton in January of 24, CB0ZA Juan Fernandez, February of 2024. FW8GC and TX8GC Wallace, February, March 24. TX7W Austral Islands, April 24. FT4GL Glorioso, May and June of 2024. N5J Jarvis, August of 2024. CY9C St. Paul, August, September of 2024. VK9LA Lord Howe, June of 2024. K8K American Samoa, June and July of 2024. C21MM Nauru, October 2024. 3D2Y Rotuma, November of 2024. 9L5A Sierra Leone, November, December 2024. TX7N Marcacus, January of 2025. V73WW Marshall, February of 2025. VK9XU Christmas, February of 2025. VK9CU Cocos Keeling, March of 2025. And VU4AX Andaman, March of 2025. So a pretty good list there of good DXpeditions that we have supported. So if you're interested in joining the OKDXA, we have some membership applications back on the table, or go to the website okdx.org. Our membership dues are quite reasonable. $20 per year for regular membership, $10 per year for senior, 65 and older membership. We'd love to have you join us. Okay, I'd like to recognize a few folks. I'm Jeff, K5WE, President of the OKDXA. Craig, W5CCP, is our Vice President. Craig. Mark, K5YAC, is our Secretary Treasurer. We have directors from 5 areas of Oklahoma. Northeast Director is Mark, N5OT. I don't think he's here tonight. Southeast Director is Gary, WQ5R. There's Gary. Northwest Director is Richard, W5GLD. Southwest Director is Coy, N5OK. And Central Director is Jason, W5ZP. Don't think Jason's here. Thanks to all of you for being willing to serve. Another club-appointed position is ARL QSL card checker. We have 3. Coy, N5OK, Jim, N5OHL, and Bob, KK5I. Jay, yeah. Sorry.
That's Dave with the scope.
Yeah, I keep doing that. We appreciate the work these guys do at the Hamfest checking cards. The OKDXA also sponsors the Oklahoma QSO party. Actually, one guy, Connie, K5CM, does all the work. Thanks, Connie, for running the OKQP each year. We are very pleased to have Dave Jorgensen, WD5COV, as our featured speaker tonight. Dave is from Deming, New Mexico, where he has put together a superstation. He is a big signal on 160 meters. On a personal note, I remember working WD5COV when I was on St. Bartholomew as FJ/K5WE in 2013. I had stuck a 3-element Yagi up on a 10-foot ladder out in the yard and was running about 100 watts. I only made maybe 15 6-meter QSOs, mostly with KP4s and other Caribbeans, but I heard and worked 2 Ws, WD5COV and 1 other W5. So Dave must have a good 6-meter station too. And I asked him if he remembered that QSO, and he did. David's been a member of numerous high-profile DXpeditions, including 706T Yemen, BP8 STI South Sandwich, BP8 SGI South Georgia, 3D2 Charlie, Conway Reef, E30 FB Eritrea, 9M0W Spratly, ZK3A Tokala, 3Y0J Bouvet, TX5S, Clipperton, and many others. Dave will do a presentation on the 3Y0J Bouvet and the TX5S Clipperton DXpeditions. Please welcome Dave Jorgensen, WD5COV.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here, and enjoy this opportunity to share these 2 DXpeditions that I went on, Bouvet in 2023, and of course Clipperton last year. 3Y0J was kind of unique. I was licensed in 1977, and I recall sitting at my little modest station as a novice, and my dad, one of my good Elmers, silent key now, but we had the ARRL map up on the wall, and he was teaching me about DXing and DXpeditions. I was caught with the DX bug quite early. And at the end of our conversation, he says, well, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you like to go? I was 14 years old. I pointed right up to the map at Bouvet. And he started laughing at me. I thought it was kind of funny. So, 46 years later, I got that opportunity. And who would have thought? So you can see Bouvet is the most uninhabited remote island on the planet. It's pretty far from any place. So we spent 2 years planning this DXpedition. We had a budget of $700,000. It's quite expensive, and we made a run at it. Bouvet is, of course, owned by Norway. There's a few facts about it there. 93% covered by snow and ice. I can attest to that. 300 stormy days a year. Quite often, very high winds. We experienced some of that as well. It's not a very big entity, landmass-wise. At the time of the DXpedition, it was number 2 on the most wanted list, so it was very rare, and we were very excited to go there. It says lots of penguins and fur seals. Didn't see very many penguins. Penguin colony up near where our camp was, and we did find out the fur seals were very aggressive. There's some prior activations of Bouvet. I first worked 3 Yankee 5 X-ray, and I would imagine most in the room that has Bouvet confirmed probably worked that DXpedition. They made 47,000 contacts. And then Chuck Brady did very good in 2001, worked him on several new bands. And we managed 18,623 contacts, and of that total I made 0. Didn't make 1 contact. We were led by 3 Norwegians, Ken Upskar, LA7GIA, Rune, LA7THA, and Erwan. And we had a pretty good team. We had some new guys on the team and some experienced seasoned DXers as well. We had a team of 12, and we had 1 guide, and his name was Peter. He was not a licensed amateur, but he was there to help us on the island to get our gear there and everything. So we tested everything in Norway. We all had projects that we were assigned. So we flew over there in April, the year before we departed. We set up all the tents, all the antennas, and then we got everything packed up and ready to be loaded on the container. And the container would have been sent down to the Falkland Islands, and that's where we would meet the container and set sail for Bouvet. So the antenna in the middle right here, that was a 24-meter spider pole, and that was going to be our primary antenna on 160 meters. And I had built a tuning network for that. And also, one of the tasks that I was given was to build another 160 meter antenna, and basically it was going to be our backup antenna. So I went to work on that, and I dubbed it the Top Band Express. You know, when you go on these DXpeditions, it always seems that the 160 meter antenna is the last antenna to go up. It takes half the team to put it up, and it takes half a day to do it. And I wanted to build something that pretty much one guy could put up by himself. So I created these base plates, and through the help of DX Engineering, which was one of our major sponsors, they have a ATK 65A aluminum antenna kit. So I got one of those, and I proceeded to design a 160 meter antenna. And I built a falling derrick for it. At first I didn't have the falling derrick built. I just had the vertical. And I invited a bunch of guys over to my house, and we thought we could just raise this with the guy ropes. And that didn't go so well. You can see the picture on the left. It's kind of got a nice little bend in it. They were there for about an hour, and we did get the antenna vertical, but it looked like a snake. It wasn't very good. So I went to work. I redesigned this whole antenna. I added 4 sections of aluminum. I had to re-engineer the whole thing. It wasn't built to my specifications to really combat the kind of environment we would see on Bouvet with heavy winds and whatnot. And I built the falling derrick. And let's see if we can get this to play. So then, with the falling derrick, one guy could raise up this vertical pretty easily. This little clip's about 14 seconds long. And I wanted to build it where the antenna would pop up straight vertical. So with the falling derrick, it was pretty good. I was pretty happy with that. I sent this little clip to all the guys that came over to my house, and they, after struggling for an hour, they said, "How did you do that?" And the falling derrick did all the work, so it was really cool. So let's see, next slide. Okay, so this is what it looks like. 4 sets of guys on this thing, 67 feet tall. The top loading wires attach at the 55-foot level. When I first raised it up, I put the analyzer on it, and the SWR was a little bit off. I said, well, I think I need to add 10 feet to each side. I added 10 feet to each side, put the analyzer on it, 1.05 to 1. It was really good. Never touched it after that. So, unfortunately, this antenna never got off the boat in Bouvet. But it made the voyage, and it made it back. So, we all left, this was about 50-day expedition. So for us guys that left out of North America, we all met in England. And we took a Royal Air Force flight down to the Falkland Islands. So for us guys from North America, we stepped foot on 5 continents during the expedition. North America, Europe. We made a stop in Cape Verde for fueling. Then we went down to the Falklands, and then over to Bouvet, Antarctica. So on our way back, we sailed back to Cape Town, and then made our way home from there. So it was quite a long trip. We took a sailboat, and also has a motor sailor, but we went by sail a lot of the time. 101-foot aluminum hull sailboat. We had a crew of 3 guys, 2 guys and a gal. Captain Olivier, first mate Charles, and Nina was really a deckhand and our cook, and she was very skilled at every task on that boat. They had quite a bit of sailing experience in the Antarctic area. Originally, we were told it's going to be 10 days to get to Bouvet, and it ended up taking 14 days. And also 7 days to get from Bouvet to Cape Town, and it took 10 days. So there we lost 1 week right there in our operating time. And also to load the boat in the Falklands, we lost another day. We had 7,000 pounds of gear, and you can see it all spread out there on the dock. And we had to load this boat in a certain way so the weight was distributed equally, and pretty much every compartment on that boat was stuffed full of gear. This was the picture of the team. And of course, like I said, DX Engineering was probably one of our biggest sponsors. And the crew is up top there, the captain's in the middle. Charles is on the right and Nina is on the left. So we set sail for Bouvet on January 17th. And as soon as we got on the water, you know, we always wondered, wow, with a crew of 3 guys, how are they gonna man the clock to get us to Bouvet? And we soon found out that we're driving the boat. So no experience on a sailboat. So the captain's over there and he's showing us how to steer the boat. And we had these hour-and-a-half deck watches where you know, we put our life preserver on. As soon as you came up on top of the Marma, you had to clip in to a line running down the length of the sailboat so you wouldn't go, you know, fall off the boat and drown. And you made your way to the back of the boat. And we would spend an hour and a half as shifts driving the boat. The captain would give us a bearing, say keep it at 220 degrees, and we'd try our best to do that. At first, I think we were weaving our way there, and then as we got the hang of things, we pretty much went in a straight line. But, you know, at first it was pretty nice. The weather was not so cold, and the closer we got to Bouvet, after 30 minutes with gloves on that wheel, you couldn't take it anymore. You had to change to the next guy, and we would rotate back and forth through that hour-and-a-half time. So it was kind of extreme. And of course, going across the Drake Passage is not easy. The ocean's very rough. So there's Nina, and there's some of the food that we had. A lot of pasta, pumpkin soup, which I have never had since. Don't care to. The saloon, you can see how much gear is stuffed there. The center in the middle, the photo in the center is one of the bathrooms, stuffed floor to ceiling with gear. Under the bottom bunks, all stuffed full of gear. That was my bunk there, the top bunk. Axel DL6 KVA was my roommate, so him and I did the deck shifts, deck watches together, and to keep your eye out for the icebergs and all that sort of thing as well. So it was quite cramped on this boat, and it was a long journey. But finally, we made it. We made it to Bouvet on January 31st, and it was a real nice day. It wasn't very cold out considering you know, what the conditions looked like. The seas seemed pretty calm. Blue sky in parts, which is kind of rare on Bouvet. So we thought, wow, we're going to have these short weather windows to get onto the island and back off again. And this seemed like a good opportunity. Cape Fea is the dark mass of land in the very back part of the picture. And that was our target area where we were going to put our camp. That's where we were allowed to camp. So what we did is we, let's see, and you can see from this photo the landing site where 3Y0J is versus where the weather station is, where some of the past operations have taken place. Good for North America, 3Y0J, not so good for North America. Good for Asia, good for Europe, but very difficult to work North America from that location. And there's just really no way around that, but that was the only place that the Norwegians would allow us to land and to conduct our operation. We were going to land by Zodiac. No one's ever done that before. No radio expedition. I think people that first landed there in 1927 did go by boat. But we were going to be doing the rubber Zodiac. One of the things I told the leaders, I said, we need an aluminum Zodiac, we needed an aluminum hull on this thing. And they said, no, the people in Norway told us we just need a rubber Zodiac. So that wasn't such good advice. But that's what we went with. These little orange and black ones were the little Zodiacs on the Marama. Ours was still in the Lazaret. We hadn't put it together yet. But on that first day, we thought, well, the weather's pretty nice. We'll send a little crew over and see how we can get up on the glacier. So we took 2 buoys and we floated a ladder, an extension ladder behind one of these Zodiacs. And Peter, our guide, and our team leader, Ken, took the first trip in. Charles, the first mate, took them to the island. And we watched from the Marama and as they made their way to the land and got right on the island and assembled the ladder and found out it's quite easy to get up onto the glacier. And the weather was pretty nice that day, like I said, but you could see in the distance the storm was brewing. And so the Zodiac came back, and then it picked myself and Dr. Mike, AB5EB, up and took us there to the island. And we just had our day bag with us. We had extra gloves and socks and extra hat, some light provisions, water, and some, like I said, some light provisions, power bars and stuff like that, with the intention that the very next Zodiac run would bring us our tent, our cold weather gear, all the essential things that we needed. We did take a medical bag with us on the first trip over, and I think that was pretty much it. So we got in the Zodiac. We put waders on so we could just step off the Zodiac onto the beach without getting wet, and that was the plan. And it seemed to work pretty well. I mean, we got to the island. I stepped right off onto the beach, black sand, very coarse sand there, and grabbed my bag, and wow, I'm standing on Bouvet. So, and this was a picture of us, first 4 guys on the island. Myself and Mike, AB5EB, we were one of the first on the island because we were in charge of setting up the hoist system that we were going to use to bring all of our gear up onto the island from the beach. And we had a drill with us, and we were going to anchor this thing into the rocks. Imagine a lot, 7,000 pounds of gear. It was going to be an arduous task. And there's the ladder. You can see it's not very steep. You could almost walk right up that thing onto the ice. And there's another photo that I'll show you here in a moment. Makes it a little easier to see that. But so the plan was, okay, they're going to go back, they're going to grab our cold weather gear and our tent, and they're going to return right away, and we're going to have all our provisions. And in the meantime, we thought we would scope the island out a little bit, look for our camp spot, where we're gonna put up our antennas and so forth. So on the next Zodiac run out, Nina and Captain Olivier brought the Zodiac, and we were waiting down on the beach, and you can see the beach, it's really sloped down to the water. It's more of a sharper angle than this photo shows. But we noticed that the sea started to turn. It was probably about midday at this point. And so we're standing out on the beach, and here comes the next Zodiac with our gear, and he gets about 20 yards from the beach, and he throws his hands up in the air, and he just he waved it off, turned around, and he went back to the boat. So we're stuck there going, what happened? Well, he felt that it was just too risky to beach that Zodiac, didn't want to puncture it, and he would have got trapped there, and the captain of the Marma didn't want to be trapped on Bouvet with his boat at anchor out there. So they called this off, and they went back to the Marma, and so the next plan was to come back to the island with another Zodiac run and get a rope to shore. And by this time, there was no way they could beach a Zodiac, so they had to come back to as close to the shoreline as they could and throw a rope ashore to us. Well, it was windy. By this time, waves were coming in 2 directions. Seas were just incredibly large. Charles would get up to throw the rope, and a lot of times the wind would just throw the rope right back at his face. And a few times that the rope actually landed on the shore, it was right at the crest of the wave line. We'd run down and try to get it, to no avail. Couldn't do it. It was impossible. The waves would just carry it right out to sea. And now we're getting later and later in the day. So they went back to the Marma, and we had a backup plan. The emergency plan was, we'll get a pneumatic launcher. So we had a pneumatic launcher, and this thing would shoot a rope 150 yards. So we thought, okay, this is perfect. So they loaded the pneumatic launcher, and they came back to the beach. And by this time, Charles and Nina came out. And Charles was a very experienced Zodiac driver. He had his head on a swivel. I mean, these waves were huge, and they were coming in from 2 directions, and it was all he could do to keep that thing from capsizing. I mean, these guys literally risked their lives trying to get us this rope. And so we all spread out evenly along this beach, and by this time the waves are coming up. They're breaking all the way up next to the glacier. Okay, and you can see how much of a distance that is difference than this photo shows. And this kind of shows a better view of the ladder going up onto the glacier, and then that land behind it, Cape Villa. But just imagine these waves crashing all the way up to the ice. That's how it was like at this time. And there were no more penguins. And if you see just, let's see here. There's a bunch of fur seals right here. They're hard to see in this picture, but they're laying there, and they're like I said, they were quite aggressive little beasts. If you got too close, they'd try to bite you. So anyway, Charles gets the Zodiac lined up parallel to the shore, and they're not too far out, and Nina's holding the launcher, and she's pointing it right to us, and we see it, and she hits the button, and the thing malfunctions. The launcher is no good. It failed right away. And now it's getting to be almost dusk. You know, it's late in the day. And we realize at this point that there's not going to be any more Zodiac runs today. And we're going to have to take what we have and go up there and sleep under the stars. So we did that. So we found a little ravine. We took all of our camping gear, our ropes and stuff, and we put them against this little opening in this ravine, and we hunkered down in there. And I tell you, about probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it was cold. And we had laid down our ropes and our waders to insulate us a little bit off the ground. And it's still cold. And we were just like, hope it doesn't snow tonight, you know. And so luckily it didn't. But about, early in the morning, Peter got up. He was complaining he was very cold. I remember moving my toes around in my boots all night long to make sure that they weren't frostbit. It was that severe. So when he got up, he started doing calisthenics, trying to warm his body up, and we all kind of got up, and I told Dr. Mike, I said, let's deploy our 2 emergency blankets. So these small emergency blankets, we laid them down. They produced quite a bit of heat for a couple of hours, and we laid on top of those and didn't get much sleep. If you can, might have dozed off once. Anyway, it was damn cold that night, and we survived till the next day. And so the next day, this was our Zodiac, the black one that we brought. And of course, now is a priority to get us supplied with food, water, shelter, everything we need to survive an asylum. So, the original plan was, and this picture is, when I look at this picture, just, you guys don't really understand what this was like. But everything, we were going to have everything in the Zodiac, and we were going to have a cargo net placed over the top to hold everything in there. So that way, when we pulled this thing up onto the beach, because we had a buoy system, we had an anchor buoy out in the water, and they would just tow this out, hook it to the line, and we would hand tow it into the beach. So the idea was we could just open the cargo net and grab everything out of this Zodiac. Well, that's not what happened. The captain insisted that they tie and strap everything down into this Zodiac. So everything was strapped and tied down. So we first towed this thing up to the beach. We got it up there. I mean, and pretty rough that day. The swells were huge, probably 15-foot seas. And we get this thing up on the beach, and we realize that everything's strapped down. We had literally seconds to try to grab something out of this and run it up to near the ice shelf there before the next wave would come in. Well, the first time we didn't get anything, we tried to undo these knots, and I'm like, no, out come the knife. We're gonna cut these straps and these ropes. I mean, we couldn't monkey around with this. I mean, we have no time. And even at that, we fought this thing for about 4 hours to get this thing unloaded. And in that process, it was quite eventful. Let's say we had 2 anchors on this. We had 4 ropes on this Zodiac. There was 4 of us holding it. And we would pull it ashore, and the next wave would come, and it would want to drag it right back out to sea. And one of the critical things that they forgot to pack was a shovel. So we had 2 anchors, but we couldn't bury these anchors into the sand. So we did our best that we could. And we got some big boulders and put over top of these anchors to try to hold them in place. To no avail. It just wouldn't hold this Zodiac with the force of the waves. We finally, we got probably half the stuff off this Zodiac. And at one point, I was kind of about 20 yards away from from Mike and Ken and Peter were down the other way. We're all holding these ropes. And we had two of them, like I said, tied to an anchor into the shore. We had the tent stakes for the tent. That bag probably weighed 100 pounds. We had that on top of one of these anchors, as well as these big rocks. And I looked over at Mike, and he looked at me, and we're like, oh, I won't say what we were thinking, but oh crap. I saw my duffel bag floating out, and his cold weather gear floating out to sea. And we looked at each other, we let go of the ropes, and we ran down the beach and just grabbed our stuff. Right as the next wave hit, we were underwater. I mean, it was bad. I had packed my duffel bag. I lined it with a big, heavy, like a 55-gallon garbage bag to keep everything inside dry, just in case it got wet. And I had packed a 2-man tent in my bag, just in case something happened. And that was our lifeblood. We had to have our stuff. So we had no choice but to let go of the ropes and go grab our stuff. And we came back. We were lucky to get it. And we found a little shelf on the ice and about 3 feet off the ground above the waves. And we put all of our gear, except for the big tent, the big blue tent in there. It was too big to go up on this shelf, so we had to have it on the beach, right next to the glacier. And so once we did that, we were okay. Our stuff wasn't going to get washed away at this point. And then the next thing you know, this monster wave comes in, and it pulled one of the anchors right out of the ground, slammed right into Mike's leg. Luckily, he wasn't hurt. As our doctor, you don't want the doctor to get injured. The next thing you heard was a pop. We ruptured the Zodiac. One of the pontoons got ruptured. Had about a 6-inch slice in it. We still didn't have everything out of the Zodiac at this point. And now the Zodiac was pulled back into the ocean by this monster wave, and then the next one crested over it, and now the Zodiac was full of water. So now this thing weighed a ton, and it was so hard to pull it back up on shore. I mean, the 4 of us, we had no quit in us, and we weren't giving up. We got it. We finally managed to get this thing back up on shore and unload everything. And we were really concerned about the Zodiac, you know. We had, real concern about this having a hole in it. We did have a repair kit with us and a foot pump, but there was no way we were going to fix it this day. So we flipped the Zodiac over and took some big stakes, pounded them into the beach about 3 feet deep, and tied the Zodiac off. Flipped it upside down so it wouldn't be floated back out to sea. And we just hoped and prayed that it would be there the next day. And so we went back up onto Cape Fia, and we went back into that same ravine. And this was that little ravine. You can see where we had our climbing gear and stuff kind of piled up there because the wind would whip through this little channel, and it was cold. So we carved out this little ravine, and I put my little 2-man tent up, and we fit 3 guys in this tent the first night. We had air mattresses. I mean, we had sleeping bags. It was so hot that night. We were about middle of the night. We were unzipping the tent, So the first night we froze to death. The second night we were about to sweat to death. And I told Peter, I said, Peter, tomorrow night, you ain't staying in here. You're going to find you another place to stay. So Ken brought a tarp with him. So the two of them slept under this tarp, and me and Mike slept in the tent. And it was a whole lot better the second day. Actually, that was the second and third night. So The next day, you know, the weather was, we looked out, we got up that morning, and it was just past dusk, and we went to the edge of Cape Fear and looked down the beach line to see if the Zodiac was still there, and it was. So we were pretty happy, and so we set out on a mission to go fix the Zodiac. So we donned our survival suits, which I really didn't want to do this because, you know, imagine right now you don't see any waves coming up, but they were coming all the way up to the glacier, and quite high off the glacier at that. In the early morning it was pretty calm, and that was pretty much how it was every day. So if you didn't get up and get going early, you were going to run out of time. And in fact, one day we got up the second day and we looked out before they supplied our came out with our supply run. And I said, how come you guys aren't on the water yet? And they said, oh, well, the crew haven't had their breakfast yet. And we're like, hey, neither have we, you know? I mean, there was just no sense of urgency from this crew. And the guys in the boat, they really couldn't emphasize to these guys on the crew that we needed to move, and we needed to move now. So that was a problem. But anyway, we went down and we fixed the Zodiac. There's the foot pump. You can see how we had the stake behind. We had one on each side with this thing. And you know, the other bad thing about this is you're so close to this ice, to this glacier, and chunks, big chunks of ice would break off. And there was really no, you know, you couldn't predict when that was going to happen or if it was going to happen. So we were always conscious of that, make sure. And while we were there, quite a large piece did break off and covered the entire beach. So very, very rough sand when you were standing on this beach and the wave would come up and it would recede back to the ocean. It would take all the material out from under your feet. It was very hard to stand on this beach when the waves were coming in. But we did manage to fix the Zodiac, and we proceeded on from there. But that particular day in my life, fighting this Zodiac and getting all our gear ashore was by far and away the toughest day, and I think I speak for these other guys, that we've ever had. We fought this thing for hours and hours. I think 4 or 5 hours total. You know, the one night we're walking back to the ladder to go back up onto the glacier, and I had my hood up on my parka, so my peripheral vision wasn't real good, and I couldn't see. And next thing you know, I hear one of the guys yells my name, Dave. So I knew right away it was got to be a seal chasing me, one of these first seals. So I lunged forward like 3 steps. I mean, you know, you can move pretty fast when you have to. And these steps were like 6-foot steps, you know. And I fell down on the 3rd step, and I turned around and I looked at this seal, and he backed off by this time, and we all cracked up. It was pretty funny, actually. But he didn't get me, but he tried. So this is a little bit of what the penguin life. You can see the marama anchored into the back, out in the ocean there, and you can see it's just sitting there rocking like this. If you look at the sail on this, on the boat, you can see what kind of condition that was. So finally, we, after 4 days, we went back to the Marma. We had a team meeting, and we said, hey, plan A didn't work, plan B didn't work. We're going to go with, what kind of plan can we go with here? So I think there was a group of 7, 8 guys that wanted to go back to the island. And I'd been there for 4 days already. I said, well, you know, in a week, we're gonna do an operator shift, and I'll come back in a week, and I let someone else take a chance to go to the island. And actually, some guys never stepped foot on Bouvet from our trip. They stayed on the boat the whole time. So they were gone from home for 48 days and never made it to Bouvet. So at least I made it to the island, but I didn't make any contacts. So first and only DXpedition, I hope that ever happens. But eventually they got to the island. Those barrels, we could float those barrels in. Those barrels were water and airtight, and we put them on the rope and pull those in. They had our gear in it. We did manage to get one of the tents ashore. The part I did leave out is the day we were fighting the Zodiac, and we had rescued our cold weather gear. We had the tent next to the glacier along the beach there, and the tent stakes. And we had already ruptured the Zodiac, and we were concerned with that, so we were trying to get it up and store it away. And the four of us looked over, and the tent was floating out to sea. There was no way to get it. And we called the Marma, no one answered the radio. All they had to do is take a dinghy out and go get it. No. The tent stakes were washed to sea. Never found them. 100-pound bag just tossed into the ocean like it was never there. It's quite incredible. So, you know, if I didn't have that little tent packed in my bag, we would have been under the stars for three nights. And luckily that didn't happen. But, you know, that tent was probably a $4,000 tent that we lost. And we had 3 of them. So we managed to get one ashore. And these guys put up a couple verticals. We had no amplifiers. We couldn't get any generators off the boat. We had a very small Honda generator that was basically a last-minute purchase, and it was going to just power the drill that we were going to use. We had 3 big generators. Of course, like I said, there was no way to get those off the boat and onto Bouvet. So they used this little Honda generator, ran a couple of K3s, barefoot, a couple little verticals, made about 18,000 cubes. And that's what was our total. You can see North America, we made 15.5% of the contacts with North America. And not proud of that at all. You know, the location really was unfavorable to North America. To Asia and Europe, we did pretty well, considering conditions and the amount of power we were running. We had high expectations on this DXpedition, and it was a failure, for sure. So they're going back. I hope they succeed next time. They're unfortunately going back to the same Cape Fia, which is not going to be good for North America. And even though they claim they have another location a little further west, you saw from the map I put up there, there is no better location that you can go to from Cape Fia to enhance the propagation in North America. So the only advantage they're going to have is they're taking a different vessel, and they're going to have helicopters, and I wish them all the best. So that was my experience on Bouvet. And after I got home, I was home for a few months, and I get a call from K5GS, Gene Spinelli, from the Perseverance DX group. And he says, Dave, he says, I know you've been through hell. He says, how would you like to go to Clipperton? And I said, sign me up. So I joined the TX5S team. I'll talk a little bit about Clipperton. This was the most fun DXpedition that I have ever been on. 5-star all the way, well organized, just a super good team, and we had a very good result. So Clipperton, you know, for me, it kind of hits back for me when I was a novice. I had built a 3-band crystal control transmitter out of the handbook. and I had an SB 303 receiver. But man, now I could get on 3 bands, and I thought I was doing real good. I was trying to work DXCC. Finally worked DXCC as a novice. One day I was on 15 meters. I'm calling CQDX in the novice band, and FO0XE, Clipperton Island, returned my call, which is unheard of these days. Okay, so that was a special contact, and I'll never forget it. And I remember writing C-L-I-P-P, and I knew it was Clipperton. My hand went numb. I mean, I was like, oh, I was so excited. And I remember my dad always said, you know, don't call me at work unless it's real important. You know, don't bother me. And I had to call Dad at work and say, Dad, you'll never guess who I just worked. I just worked Clipperton. Oh, no, you didn't. And I said, oh, yes, I did. So I got the card to prove it, and that was a memorable QSO. So to be able to go to Clipperton was really special for me. And we sailed out of San Diego. We took a nice boat called the Shogun, and here's coming out of the San Diego harbor, and there's a nice view of downtown San Diego. 6-day sail down to Clipperton, not too bad. First day was a little rough at sea, and I'm not a boat lover. I hate boats. I get a little seasick. That first night I couldn't eat my dinner, and it was a gourmet 5-star meal, and I was like, man, I gotta fix this, you know. So the next, I never missed a meal after that. It was really good. And this was our captain, Captain Rambo was his name. He went by Rambo. He looks like a salty old captain. I tell you, that guy could drive a boat. He could put that boat anywhere he wanted it. Super nice guy. We had a very, very good crew of 5 strong guys to run these aluminum skiffs that we use to get all of our gear onto to Clipperton. Of course, we set up a vertical on the boat so we could run, maritime mobile, hand out some grids. All those blue barrels in the back of the boat, that was full of gasoline, and that was to run our generators. And we probably came back with half of that fuel, which we were able to get a refund for. So that was kind of nice. So it was a good sail to Clipperton. This was kind of our lounge area where we ate our meals and hung out during the day. It was quite comfortable on this fishing boat. And down below we had our staterooms, 2 to a room. My roommate was Francesco. You guys may have worked HV0A Vatican, and that's who he is, Francesco.